have as something that could help us manage what we have. But primarily, we'd be bringing in raw materials, I'll call it, to be business oriented. You're bringing in raw materials from elsewhere, and we would not be the one that would supply you most of what you were bringing in. So we do have that traffic in, and not that we would agree, but I can't see anywhere but on Southern Boulevard. Whether that even be acceptable to the community is we're not giving you a blessing. But I like the idea, and I certainly would encourage you to move forward. I applaud you for the idea of the patent that you have. It sounds like one of those impossible dreams that you can actually take. I can't say it.
I know.
You can take it and turn it into something beneficial. It's great.
Well, it's been demonstrated. I did do it in front of the Wellington Council.
And having Dr. Lauder on your side, that's quite a feather in your hat. Even though he's an old codger like me, he still has a lot to say to his guidance. But I do thank you for coming out. I want you to understand that. I think the idea is worth looking at it further, but I think you're getting some honest feedback as far as, I don't know if you knew the town doesn't have a lot of land, but we could just say, well, let's.
I knew the town had a huge problem, and that's why I came to work.
We have property, people in town own property, certainly large tracts.
And like we said, we can not only, we're going to do restoration of the places that have been dumped on for quite a while, not just the new stuff coming in.
Right.
We can clean that up.
Right.
We have products that can be made out of that.
Okay, now I understand that we're stopping the stuff that's coming in. The next thing, once we get that ironclad working, we're gonna move, I guess, we'll have to move forward with what we already have. Because we can't just let it sit and infiltrate our waters.
You made me think of another question for you. I realize you were saying, and then John Ryan can verify this, we've got a nasty 10 acres in A Road that we stopped the chipping and stuff on, but they didn't clean the mess up when they left. And then they had it on the 5 acres across from my home, and they didn't clean their mess up when they left. But my question is, when you clean a place up and you put your process and your plant and stuff there, what does your plant look like?
It would be, what do you mean, what does it look
I
like?
mean, what do you
We
think?
want it behind a chain, a fence,
Right.
and I have a, go ahead.
As far as the buildings or
The aesthetics?
Right, the aesthetics. in
The
other words.
aesthetics of it, it's dryers, what the shaving dryer looks like, and basically a lot of concrete and storage buildings, that would be metal buildings. But nothing that, we're not gonna build something that's like shabby. It has a specific layout,
Right.
and it has to be,
Example like Valley Crescent, like Church Boulevard, I think that looks like crap, but okay.
I don't know what that is, but also, I would think that you would put up a berm and trees to block it in the front and a nice entryway, so that it makes everybody happy.
All right, anybody else? Thank you very much for your comments. Got one public comment here. And Bill, you're going to address it. Bill, Keith, and John. Yeah.
Your package gives no information for you.
Not cutting down trees.
We can contact you with the
Yes.
information we have.
Yes, and if you, my website, or I can give you a. Okay.
The conversation that we're having here about water quality and also, it's really, it's ill-informed at the very least, because it's all just based on conjecture. But one conjecture I would make is that, the people with the Indian River Lagoon were all upset and blaming the farmers, between the sugarcane people and all the guys with cows, man, they were terrible. Yeah, so when they did the DNA check to see where the E. coli was coming, it was coming from their septic tanks. So when we're worried about E. coli, when we're worried about pharmaceuticals, I know I take 5 different pharmaceuticals a day for my heart condition, and I don't put it in a bottle. you know? So, where does that go? Think about these things. You know, we're not living in a pristine environment. We can't blame, you know, we can't get out of control. It's not the town's responsibility to clean up these messes. We don't have an EPA super fund that we're going to be hitting up for this. It's the responsibility of the people who've been collecting money to dump the crap on the land. And we have to, if they want to use these folks to do that, that's a whole different thing. If they want to come here and then ask for zoning for the property, we'll see about that. But, you know, we don't allow chippers that are just chipping vegetation, just chipping wood. Now we're going to allow wood plus you know what with it. You can't tell me it doesn't stink. Okay, that's the one thing you can't tell me. Okay, another thing, I have seen the composting facilities that Waste Management has in Okeechobee and in Henry County. They're big, they're very industrial, and they have machines to turn the stuff. The machine goes back and two all the time. You know, it's a building that's probably 5 to 6 stories tall. They have concrete bunkers running everywhere, being filled up, and machines driving around, and trucks and everything. Yeah, it's an industrial, I mean, it's a farming operation. So's a sugarcane farm. You know, they bring big equipment. This is agribusiness. This is not a little somebody making a pile in their yard and composting. This is a big operation, and it's not our stuff. You know, we could make a lot of money on a lot of things. I'm sure we could get a landfill. We could get we could get tippage on people running a battery recycling place here. That's not Waxahachie Grove. But, you know, I just think we need to, everything is in that.
Thank you, Tom. Bill Loud?
Bill out of E Road. A couple of things. First up, I think I want to clarify, something that Shelley said about cleaning up the site and then followed up on looking at it. When she's talking about cleaning up the site, I think she's talking about removing stuff, taking it to a single place, and then treating the soil at that site to be cleaned up, not putting the plant at the site that's cleaned up.
Correct.
The plant is somewhere else. Okay, they don't move the plant around. The water quality issue that Tom just made is true. We do poop. The Indian River Lagoon, however, because I've been working with Brian Point at Harbor Branch Ocean Graphic for years on water quality, and he's done the Delta N15 nitrogen isotopes, is due to density and intensity. If you pull up the State of Florida Department of Health map for septic tanks, and you go up the rivers and around there, it's unbelievably dense. Okay, I'm working in Little Lake Worth, which is surrounded with $1 million homes. Guess what? They're on septic tanks. Okay, I've got unbelievably bad organic ooze and total anoxic water at the bottom. I'm working on looking at coprostanol now. It's a steroid that gives a breakdown in human manure. Human food. And human feces, there we go. I knew there was a word. Being the king of caca, I knew how to know this. Anyway, I looked at, a couple of years ago, I looked at Shelley's presentation over in a huge barn over in Wellington, and basically got behind it as a concept. A lot of things were made tonight about Waxahachie Grove being Waxahachie Grove is true. I too think that, should we ever invite them in and work with them, it would have to be uncentered. Not even Okeechobee. I was thinking, well, maybe the old villa in Simmons property, just sitting there with plastic things, but that's bringing too much traffic in. So to me, the south end of the guest property, or duck puddle, or duck pond, or whatever it's called, would probably be about the only one I could think of off the top of my head that might be acceptable. The process itself is, from what I've seen, I didn't review it, this is 2 years of memory and a couple of quick lists of slides tonight, is extremely green. Everything's recycled, including the water. You saw chlorine generators up there, and I heard somebody mention something about chlorine. I believe you're doing electrolysis of salt on site, which is generating hypochlorite, not chlorine gas. True? Right.
Exactly.
You got bleach, not chlorine gas, so you don't have to worry about a cloud of yellow gas coming down. Now, the same thing the Boca Raton water plant did to basically save Boca, because they were storing enough chlorine gas there 20 years ago to wipe out Boca, North Deerfield, and South Delray. So they've gone to the electrolysis of salt. It's the same thing that works on these swimming pools, chlorine generators of swimming pools, the same concept. You're making sodium hypochlorite, chlorides on site. Anyway, to me, the whole concept of potentially having Kelly Eco Green come in and work with our stuff, and obviously to be a business that can to bring in raw material, keep going year round, would be scale. Okay. So, from that point, it is a really, really good way. Now, Tom brought up the point of everything going in the canal is not coming off the land and everything. The phosphorus is, I think I gave you a phosphorus analysis. I've had 2 graduate students, a couple directed independent study students look at phosphorus from Forest Manure. It's unbelievably extractable. Pure water extracts it. Water with a little bicarbonate extracts it. Guess what? We've got limestone soil. We generate tons of it. So more than half of the available phosphorus, almost pushing 2/3 of the available phosphorus in horse manure is extractable just with water. It's very extractable. 18 milligrams of phosphate, we get multiplied by 0.326, we get the phosphorus itself per dry gram of horse manure. And horses
Clear up here on this bill.
about 90 pounds.
Blackboard when you do it.
90 pounds. And just remember, as I tell my students, or my old students, this is my first day of retirement, I can't do teaching or research at FAU anymore for a year. Drop on what program. Anyway, for every poop, P-O-O-P, there's 2 phosphoruses. To get into the end. So we do have a phosphorus problem in our canals because there's a lot of phosphorus and there are a lot of site-specific point sources. Not the point source that EPA says, because I really disagree with their definition of a point source. If I can measure something coming out of the pipe, to me that's a point source. But that's not the point source because where did it come from? Okay. So when I look at our canals, the pipe to me is a point source. Okay. But the EPA is a non-point source. You go back to the pile of manure, that's the point source. The algae that I hope everybody has seen growing in the bottom is a cyanobacterium. It's probably a nitrogen fixer. I bet my reputation on that because I look at it, it looks like Lingbia, and if it's a nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria, that means there's more phosphorus than the other algae can be used because they need nitrogen to go with the phosphorus. So these cyanobacteria can take nitrogen gas and put it into proteins by using the excess phosphorus. And I was really amazed at how thick this stuff is getting out there.
So let's kind of stick to her.
Oh, anyway, yeah. Well, anyway, that's the cleanup part. It's phosphorus. We're going with phosphorus. Down the road, there's a new product out called Phoslock that the town may need to look at eventually. It takes phosphorus out of the water, sediments it, and it isn't re-released like when you treat it with alum, like South Florida water management would do in Lake of the Children. But and it keeps phosphorus back out of the sediments. But again, expensive. So rather than be reactive and clean up the stuff that's there, let's be a little proactive and try and keep it, lessen the stuff coming out of it. So there is good reason to look at green things and to give it a leg up if possible. But again, I hope Shelter does realize that Los Angeles grows as Los Angeles grows. And we took that flag from up north with a little snake. Don't tread on me.
Thank you. Keith?
Keith Harris, 2580 C Road.
operate a equine boarding facility. I'm interested in recycling of my materials that is produced on a daily basis. I believe that if such a facility was put in locally, that the local equine businessmen would be paying a lesser ticketing charge for pickups than what they're paying now. But we have some opportunities to overcome. One is we have an ordinance that right now that does not allow manure to come into our town. So we won't have to rewrite an ordinance that we've just finished creating. Secondly, commercial animal manure management is not permitted in AR zoning districts nor in commercial districts, so we're going to have to change the UIDC. They indicated that they wanted to operate year-round, scale the structure down, but to operate year-round, they were going to be stockpiling massive amounts of materials that they create, that they receive during the season, because there's not that much material being produced 9 months of the year. Cattle roads would not be able to produce enough soil, manure, and bedding to satisfy their requirements. So there's a lot of questions, a lot of things that have to be changed in order to even consider such a thing. So I ask all of you to careful consideration.
Thank you, Keith. John Rice?
John Ryan, 35 Oakland Road. I did read through the appearance. This, to me, is clearly an industrial scale process. I agree with a lot of the questions that you brought up. I think the composting portion of it is going to take time. I think that I looked at Bill Lowry's letter. He actually wrote his recommendation after reviewing this to both the mayor and the town council in Wellington. If anybody had both a stake in dealing with huge amounts of manure, and if they had people that were genuinely interested in equestrian stuff like Jacobs and Bellissimo and the polo fields and all of the polo activities, they could find 10 acres. I think that's where this kind of a project belongs. That's where the source of the material is. That's where the money is. That's where the problems are. I mean, that whole Acme Development District in Wellington spent a huge amount of money on the nutrients that they were going into a watershed. I mean, this is an ideal project for them, and I think they've got the money to research it, and we really, I really don't think there's a good location for it here, other than maybe Bill Lowry said that southern portion of the guest property. But I think what we're going to be facing in terms of South Florida water management and Florida DEP, we don't need to have them have the impression that we're encouraging a huge, however creative, manure processing facility in the town. It just, to me, is not a good fit.
Thank you, John. All right. Shelley, thank you very much for coming. I think it's a wonderful idea. I just, and we've talked about the phone before, in Loxahatchee Groves, Ken Johnson, address it.
I would like to answer one thing though. They're acting like we're going to take all the materials, sort of like when you build a hotel. Doesn't mean that you can, once it's filled, it's filled. Doesn't mean that you keep taking stuff. So that would be something to consider as well. We were going to have it stored properly, and it was going to be on concrete. So it wasn't like we were just having mounds of everywhere. And the composting, that's incorrect. It does compost quicker because you're removing the carbon from it.
Right.
So it does break down much quicker. It's not the same composting because all that carbon takes much longer.
But it is an industrial type operation, and we are residential, rural residential town. So,
Well, the DEP, when I spoke to them, deemed it as ag.
well, if we went with everything DEP suggested, we wouldn't be Loxahatchee Groves. So, Ken?
Yes. I think your concept is good, but I don't believe it's right for us. It's too large, it's too complex. We are fighting the manure coming in, and that's all South Florida Water Management needs to see is, boy, they're taking it back in again. You know, so I mean, we don't like through traffic. Cut through traffic is one of our biggest problems. I mean, everybody cuts through Loxahatchee. We don't need manure coming from out of state and everywhere else to Loxahatchee. Absolutely don't need cut through traffic. Your concept is excellent, but maybe they need it out in, or maybe Belle Glade or somewhere out there that needs people to put them to work. You know, I don't know, but not here. Southern Boulevard is about the only place that would be available, but I'm sure that one of our councilmen up there doesn't want it next door to his property, and I sure don't want to look at it from my property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. All right, moving on to the committee reports. Yeah, let's take it quickly. I've never been this late in a meeting when I like that.
Excuse me, thank you.
That doesn't do anything. Yes. It's wonderful. That's, yeah. Isn't that true? And that's what I'm saying. You know, it's going to be trucking in and storing it in your garage. Yes, because it's their problem. It's their problem. They're the problem. They don't want yes, they don't want Wellington for success. Send everything to Loxahatchee Road. They have the problem. They should solve it. Don't bring it here. And you know how much it stinks. I know, that's what I'm saying. Can you imagine how much it stinks? Imagine 20 or more, that's a lot. Can you imagine if it brings some wool from out of town? Oh, you're in trouble. No, he was just, we love you, but I'm getting out of you. What is?
It don't matter when you get on here. Hey, listen today, we can crawl back in the hole. You know, we do have.
Or we can crawl back in a hole, or we can stay like we are, or we can become a Wellington or Royal Palm or anything else. No. That is a Wellington problem. Do it in Wellington.
No, it's not a well.
It is a Wellington problem.
It's a problem in Loxahatchee.
It's not. Our problem is what we generate. They're talking about everybody
Hey, listen to me. The problem for Western you realize it's not just Wellington's main problem. No, it's all over. All over.
But we're not in industrial. I hope that you don't envision us as being an industrial town. Wrong.
No, I don't think about it. I've been here 53 years. You honestly think that's about
It will be.
No, what she means is
well, first of all, I haven't even seen it.
You don't have to see it.
What I seen on paper, let's okay. First of all, my major problem is we got 3 dumping grounds all over one set. How long are we gonna live? The weeds are big as 800 tall power.
Why is that the tax rate? Not that low.
We approved it, there's only one person on the council that didn't like that.
Who is the one, and who is the one that complained about Ron, Patty could do just chipping wood, it doesn't stink.
But it's loud, you ever live next door?
It shouldn't be, it doesn't stink as much, it doesn't stink as much as my husband's saying.
Why they come in and they think, okay,
What is
would
worse
match
is
here,
they-
because they see those.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Other places on
Yeah,
that.
the hard work, my
Horrible.
It's like, they think, well, there she is.
You gotta be careful.
And then
That's
we're
how
all-
No, that's what I'm saying, it is, you know, even a chipping wood, you know, it's nasty. I don't think we should.
Okay, let's keep going. We can maybe get out of here.
Just stretch out there.
There's two spots missing.
Let the record show that Tom is not feeling well. All right, moving to 5 committee reports.
Finance?
Finance committee.
John. John Ryan.
Oh. Oh, okay. All right. We had our meeting on March 24th, and we approved February financials 5-0. There were no reclassifications. Bank balance was $3.357 billion, and that was a slight decrease from last month, about $7,000 less than last year. I want to talk to you primarily about the general fund, as this fund contains the town's operating income and operating expense. This is the fund that we've relied on in the past to provide our services, our surplus. Through February 28th, the general fund had received 36.6% of the annual revenue budgeted, 36.2% of the expense, and at 42% of the year, we had 42% of the year. Year-to-date, revenue exceeded expenses by $4,110. So what we should take from that is that we have a good budget. It's tight. There's no extra in it, and anything that you decide to add on to, something else has to come out. And it's not generating a surplus at this point. RFP for financial accounting software. Okay. Bill Underwood brought our committee up to date on his research into the financial accounting software, which would meet the needs of the town. He had reviewed a number of companies, and the costs were widely ranging, and on both initial and ongoing costs. So the committee unanimously wanted me to recommend to you that we send out an RFP at this time. This was based on our desire to provide transparency, save management time, and provide a more equitable basis for comparison of features and costs. Now, here we have, Harlan gave me this right before the meeting. These are copies that I would like to give you right now of the draft for your review.
Draft of,
Our RFP for accounting software. This is for you to review. The attorney has a copy. The town staff is going to send the FAAC committee members a copy. Even though we've already reviewed a draft that I believe is very similar to this.
motion to receive and file.
And so we're giving you that, and then this can be put on your next meeting for discussion and copy in the agenda packet if you have any suggested changes. Okay?
We have a motion and second for receipt and file. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, passes 4-0.
Can you tell us the range that you're talking about? Are you talking about police stations only, or are you talking about?
We have, yeah, I mean, for
Not go through the
software,
whole,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
not go through every single number. I'm just curious as to kind of a grouping of types of, here's the conditions that we found the range in here, and then here's a different
Okay,
animal.
we had someone that would contract with the town to provide it for an annual cost of $33,000. We had another quote of $25,000, and that one was for the SaaS system, which doesn't include inputting money. It's just basically sharing their server and their accounting software. Bill was looking at the time of the meeting, a $6,000 contract for actually purchasing the software. And we thought costs on that would run about $2,000 annually. But the reason we wanted to go ahead, let's do the RFP, let's get in, complete packages from these people, because it's very difficult to really compare these based on the information that we have so far. The concerns are not just the initial purchase, but what is it going to cost to do this on an ongoing basis? How much is the training going to be? What is the cost to continue for updates, et cetera. So we really need to get the whole picture.
Right.
And that's why we're going ahead and recommending RFP, and you have it in your hand, okay?
So you have written the RFP and you're ready to say to town manager, send this out.
Here's where we are. We have reviewed a draft of the RFP meeting before last. This RFP may have some changes, slight changes, small
It's
changes.
a little bit more detailed.
And I have not seen it until tonight. But the plan is to send copies to the finance committee, ask the finance committee to send if they have any comments on the changes, to send it back to Perla. We're trying to save time on this, and just, and then you guys can look at it, see if you want any changes, and then we'll put it in the agenda for the next meeting.
So you expect at the next finance meeting,
No, your next meeting.
our next meeting,
Your next meeting, you
so
can
you're
put
gonna
this.
send changes to Perla
We're gonna
from
send
each
changes to
finance
Perla.
committee person, since you've already reviewed it
Yeah,
and you've already agreed to the original draft, and now there's some tweaks to it that you,
if there are any tweaks, we'll
that
send them in.
Perla in
We'll
her.
be given an opportunity to send them out. I don't know if we'll have any, but we wanted you to look at it also.
Okay, now the changes that Perla made would be based on discussions in the finance committee, or,
We put together a bid proposal form that lists the services by the seats that we're renting, because that's what we're doing. We're purchasing the ability to use somebody else's software as a service. So we're able to access their system through our hardware. We use their software,
right?
and then we're able to take the reports and do with them. We store them, they store them for us as well. So there's prices for modules. We've given them the modules that we need. We've given them a breakdown of what the town is, what we have financially. We don't have utilities. We don't have lots of things that other governments would have. So we've told them we're 3,200. We are a small population with a $1.8 million budget. We have 30 funds and one proprietary fund, and these are the modules we need.
Okay, but the changes since
Well,
your last
we
draft,
asked them to add the memo, explaining to the bidders the size of our town and our total budget, so that they would, hopefully, we wouldn't get in bids that would suit the city of Orlando. This is not a
I'm not sure
major
that the
project.
changes that you haven't seen is the finishing
That's what I
touches
haven't
that you
seen.
asked
Yeah.
Perla to put in.
And all the bid forms that we use on a normal basis for all our RFPs have been included in those.
Okay, so the
And that's
finance
basically
committee's
the
gonna
change.
review this, make changes as needed
If
to
we
send
need
directly to
But
Perla.
we have basically looked at
And
it.
the council is to look at it and send any comments that they have to Perla. And she is
Then put
then,
it on your agenda for the next meeting, and you're ready to go
at
out.
the next meeting, have it for us to,
I'm expecting at the next meeting on the 15th, if it gets approved with all the changes, it goes into the post on the 16th, and I've got a bidders list of 7 companies that provide this service for small communities. We're not talking about, we're talking about systems that are in place in small communities, and those will go out on the 16th.
okay.
I think I have a bid opening date on that proposal of,
And the concept is, it's something that's compatible with what we have now, or is it open?
Oh, absolutely, it has to meet our requirements, and is it going to be
Is
compatible?
it something that you can Are there some options that will
Compatible in
take
what
our
sense?
current file and read it into another software and be ready to rock and roll?
Well, you understand that when I take our system and I do it, at the end of the year, I have to turn it all into an Excel spreadsheet so it can flow into anybody's system, the data now, instead of manually entering it in. One of the companies that we do have that we're going to send is a company that we use their software. That might be on the top end, and that might be something you don't consider, but whatever system you get in place, we're trying to find a system that's not very complicated, that whoever you're going to have training on that will be able to just pick off and go.
Okay, I mean, that's long-term, very good points, obviously, between you and the finance committee, you're gonna, the results of the RFP are gonna be outstanding because of the resources and smarts that are there. My question is, in terms of many softwares, you can take one file right off of the software and load it directly into the other software, and they're compatible, and
Well-
you just put everything in the spots they're supposed to.
And part of the bid package is the data conversion. They will be doing the conversion, so they're going to be taking all our information and dumping it into their system.
Okay,
That is part of the bid package.
okay.
It's really integrated, it's comprehensive.
All right, I mean, I had no doubts that you will do a tremendous job
But we're going
putting that
to,
together. I was just curious as to some of the
we
things.
have to find the right fit
Yeah.
for our community
Right.
and what we do.
Yeah, the only thing you're missing from the folks that you've used is need. And I'll put my 2 cents in there.
In our offices, we do too, just for
Yeah,
legal issues, not so much
art,
to
yeah, yeah,
identify the scope of
Okay.
services and.
right.
Send it to Mark,
Mark has it.
send our notes to Mark. You know, send them to Perla or send them directly to Perla, or how would you do that?
You send it to me, that's fine, I'll make sure Carl.
Or we can send them to Perla our observations and suggested changes, because she's writing a document that.
And you'll have the opportunity to make those changes on that,
Approve
on
it
the
at
next
the next
meeting
meeting.
too.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Anything else?
Yes, what we spent the most of the time on in the meeting was the joint workshop. And the feedback that we reviewed our own feedback, and also the feedback that we believed we received from you. The committee asked me to convey our understanding at the last meeting that the consensus of the council at the joint workshop was that the town is responsible for paying for road improvements. And I just want to confirm that this is that you agree with this, and that this will be our working assumption going forward into budgeting and into subsequent workshops.
Then what was your assumption?
That the town is responsible for paying for road improvements.
That's an incorrect assumption.
That's correct on my part.
How many
The
people,
council has not made that
and
statement.
that was what the subject of that workshop was, was really.
We talked
so-
about it, and you asked us to reconsider it in our capital items, and we have to discuss them. But I don't recall anybody at the council having a vote that said, and we weren't voting anyway.
You don't vote in a
That's the
workshop.
reason why we had the question.
Yeah.
If you,
That's it.
You don't vote in a workshop, but it's my understanding that part of the issue you're going to talk about on April 15th is to confirm up with all the concepts you discussed during that workshop. Because you don't take action in the workshop, so
So you're gonna finalize that at the next meeting, because
it will at
review.
least, you'll be able to give some direction on April 15th.
there was one point during your workshop where Bill put his hand up and said, can we assume, we kind of like asked a question just to try to get feedback. That's the feedback we thought we got.
So, but it was only feedback, it wasn't action, that's, you'll have to take that action or form that policy during a meeting.
Well, I would assume that the town would be responsible for eventually all of it. And also for any improvements that we do, especially since we're paying for it.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in the next meeting.
Yeah, the question was who pays for the roads, who's paying for the roads, and what you're saying is that's something you're gonna discuss at April 15th. Okay, that's fine. With regard to the capital budget, we just ask that you provide town staff with consensus on the actions that you want them to take on the immediate short-term capital projects, and I think you've already done that with, regarding to the 3 OGM roads, but if there are any other capital projects that you want them to proceed on immediately or you want them to put on hold, you need a consensus on that, and I suppose you could do that in the next meeting. Okay.
Well, I'm not sure. We have certain things that we have directed town management to do unless we undo it. The workshop doesn't change that.
What we're asking is that you provide them that direction, so that, because there are some projects, we know you want them to go ahead and work, obviously, on the 3 roads right now, that's an immediate project. But what about Collecting Canal? I mean, we have a lot of other big projects that are in our 2014 capital budget, and that directs staff to go full speed ahead on those. And what we need to know is,
the point I'm making is, we've directed staff to move forward with a light on Okeechobee Boulevard and to pursue the crossings on B and F. Those are in process to move ahead on. We haven't changed that.
okay, well, that's what we're saying, just provide that direction, make
They
sure
want
that they're
another-
clear on it.
We've made a vote, the council voted to do certain things.
So,
We haven't undone that vote.
we're basically, all of the projects that are in there are back on the drawing board.
No, I'm saying, we haven't given direction as to how to proceed on something. We have given direction on light and the crossings specifically, and Mark has been moving forward on that, that project.
Except that the crossings isn't a CIP project. That was just something that was added on. We haven't.
No, I understand, but, you know,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
we'll catch up with some of that stuff, but I don't know if that, I have, my perception of your concern really was roads.
Yes,
And that's where I'm
Roads.
looking at what we have to look at and further
roads, I think
discuss and
roads
further
are,
direction.
right, I think
Compton
the
Road
only issue that came
and the
up is,
Compton-
do you want us to move ahead on Collecting Canal right away in the short term, or since it is in the 2014 budget, or are we to put that on hold until we've had an opportunity to develop a whole policy? I think that was the question that
Okay,
was
but
the
tonight
big
I think you
one.
heard, we defined our work on 3 roads as maintenance, even though they're coming out of gas tax money. And that's, you know, when you say roads, projects, that's a big subject in a lot of pieces and so on. But tonight, we have reaffirmed that, as you just noted, and those are moving forward. So of the items, I guess, that we had on the list, we only have, the biggest single item is we have not specified what to do next. And that'll certainly be something we have to take on. But I'm careful because I don't want Mark thinking, well, that means we didn't decide to continue on the light. I don't think he's of that mind.
No.
Because he's working on
We didn't
that
discuss the
actively.
light. We really were, we were discussing the capital improvement projects, and I think specifically Collecting Canal that we're moving ahead on, and, you know, also these other 3 roads, which you've already clarified, those are going ahead, those projects. And whether or not it's a maintenance project or it's in the capital budget, and that's the scope of what we're talking about, and we need money for it, we need funding, so it's gonna be covered out of the capital budget, because somebody's gotta go from somewhere.
Well, Lisa, as far as moving forward on those projects, I would say yes, as far as, you know, we do have to identify the funding source. So if we don't identify the funding source, how are we gonna move forward on the project?
Right.
So I think that would be the next
Okay.
hurdle
Yes, I
for
agree.
us to decide on which projects can we move on after the 3 roads.
Right, okay.
We might be like the county does, where you have something on the drawing board and it's approved, but it's not financed.
Okay.
With that money.
All right. The final thing is that we're also recommending, this is being taken care of in your next meeting also, a needs assessment of our roads. Because, and this would advise you of what road work is needed in the town and the approximate costs of the work. Town staff does have most of this information already, so it's not going to be a huge cost. I believe it has been placed on your agenda for discussion, so you don't have to answer questions on this tonight. Yes, unless Ron has.
Just one comment.
Yeah.
Because I really will wait till the 15th, but my dream would be that I believe that when you said it's not going to cost us much to do an assessment on our roads, I believe that management might recommend that we bring the engineer firm in to do an assessment, and if we do that, then it's going to cost us a fortune, so.
Well, you're going to know that on the 15th, and that'll, but we're trying to get a process for prioritizing roads. Okay, once we have the needs assessment, we have an idea of what are the needs of the roads, which roads need the most work, and what it's going to cost. Then we can move forward with criteria for prioritization. In other words, how are you going to decide which road to do next? And the goal is to develop a town roads policy that's based on the needs and desires of local residents, is affordable, and which eliminates any possible perception of favoritism. We're looking, I think we need an objective policy that we can tell our residents, this is what we do. And then once we know what that is, and we know what our needs are, we can tell you what it's going to cost and how to pay for it. We have been also looking into the potential for, or town staff has been looking into the potential for obtaining grants. And we will be discussing this further at future meetings, but don't hold your breath. There may be some out there, but it's going to be cost share. I think that's it. We just want to be able to serve the town by working with you and the town staff in the near future to develop an effective and workable town roads policy. Affordable also, Brian? Yes.
Do the research, but we almost obtained a $200,000 grant for equestrian trails and stuff, but we had a problem, and that problem caused the state to turn it down. Okay, just think about it for the next meeting. Okay, I want to know if we've solved that problem, or where we can go back to the state and ask for the same thing we asked for before, $200,000, or if we still have the same problem because we haven't solved it.
Well, yeah, but legally, I know Nina's here, the capital budget now has 80 or 100,000 in it for trails, right? 80,000. That 200,000 was the cost to match. So we would have to have at least 2,000 that the town would put up to match. And that's
20,000, right?
Do you want to have 80?
No, the grant was asking for 200,000. The town would have to match that with another 200,000.
Okay, now I'll be honest with you, that's the first time I heard about us matching it. So I've been in the blind
The
on that.
more, the better you match it, the better chances you get, because you get points for that. So,
Yeah.
yes,
And
you should have.
So, yeah, they had, the
If you
trails
want to
committee,
make a chance, you can
finance
say, give me
committee
a
advised us we needed to increase the funding for trails if we wanted to apply for that grant.
May all
I think-
verify that, it's been a while since I looked at that grant, but I think in our proposal, we added a $25,000 match as opposed to
Okay.
20. I think that's what the number was, I'll verify it, get back to you. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
But yeah, we'll get that ironed out. Any of the grants we get, we're looking at Tiger grants, and they're all, you have a better chance of getting the grant if you put up a greater cost share. So, I think that's what's causing confusion. And that will apply to our road grants also.
Sure. Okay.
Because they want their money to have the most bang for the buck too, be able to put in the most miles of roads. Okay, I think that's it.
I had a question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Not letting me off that easy.
Well,
It's kind of a duplicate question. Mark, is the finance committee, each time they get their financial package, getting the balance sheet showing the funds, the balance sheet funds?
Yes. We absolutely are, yeah.
Every time, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so you're getting that updated as we go through the year.
We're getting it updated as we go through the year.
Okay. The second question I had for you was, and Pearl probably has the answer top of her head, but I don't know if you're new. We had the discount fee on our solid waste assessment seems to be, from an actual perspective, higher than our budget by a little bit. Did we have a discount fee on, because I didn't see it quickly, the discount fee on ad valorem taxes, was it running higher on a percentage basis, on an actual basis,
We get, you know, the problem with it runs higher when you're taking, but at the end of the year, not at the end of the year, I think in November, we received a check from the clerk of the court because of the discount fee they had taken, they had received more than what they were entitled to. So they refunded the town $4,900 roughly.
Well, those assumptions on the discount were the same, do you think, for both transportation, for both and solid waste?
No, because you know, on the ad valorem, they automatically take out the discount. All we see is what the ad valorem. On the solid waste, you see the difference and then they charge us the 1%.
Right, but you see, what's the difference between
On ad valorem, we don't see it as a
gross and
separate.
We don't see it in ad valorem, we see it in the solid waste.
You just see, you just have to go on the gross and then at the end of the year say, well, the gross and the net are X percentage.
And this year on our ad valorem, we received 100% and just a little bit.
All right, but when you budget,
We
you don't budget 100% ad valorem
We
receipt.
budget 95.
Okay, that's my question. On the discount for solid waste, we budget something like 3% or something.
I think
Discount.
whatever the discount is, it's a 3% discount, plus a 1% that Palm Beach County charges.
Right, that's a separate line, right?
Mhm.
Okay. On our solid waste, I'm sorry, on our, these numbers get smaller as I get older. Contractual waste oversight, have we addressed the fact that we are over 152% of that number?
Let me explain what's happened. Because when we entered into the new contract with Waste Pro at the beginning and still, they missed the first month of this brand new contract. They missed half the town in the first week. So we had our monitor going out and getting on the rides with the solid waste to have them come back and pick up people's garbage. We have been fining the Solid Waste Pro an average of $5,000 a month, which we have been reducing from their bill. Up to date, we have paid the $12,000 or the $10,000 that we budget for the waste monitor back in the fines that we have assessed the Waste Pro. It has been extensive, but there has been a lot of missed garbage, and we've had a lot of citizens complaining, and it's
No,
taken a lot of time.
I'm aware of that. I would suggest to you, if you can,
Right.
that it be much more visible if we saw the fees that we are charging them, fining fees, because if I look at where we are spending money to compensate for that, it would be a much easier story to say, I've got 15,000 in fees because of that, but we had our solid waste administrator spending a lot more time because of that, but they offset.
I understand, but if you look at what we pay monthly to Waste Pro, you'll see that we're paying a reduced amount.
But I can't,
In the package of the bills that are on the website and the Finance Committee gets, they get the Waste Pro bill with the reduction and a sheet that lists all the fines on a monthly basis.
can you separate that out on another line? When we go through this little bit of budget changes we may do, and identify that as a separate line. I know you're paying them net, but
I'm
the
paying them.
visibility, we should see the finding. We as a council should know that we fined our vendor a substantial amount of money.
I can write you a report every month, but I can't I don't think we could add a line item in our budget, or it's just a reduction of what we pay, so if they bill us 37 and we're only paying 34, or 32, or they're billing us 36, every month it changes based on the fines. But I don't know, it's not,
Can you do it in the finance, in the system or not, adding an account that separates that out?
no.
'Cause that's a significant number this year.
I understand, but I'm not sending them an invoice and they're paying for it. It's just a reduction. All you're gonna see is, instead of, what did we budget for solid waste? Let's say it was $351,000 this year. At the end of the year, all you paid was maybe 300,000. That's what you'll see. You'll see the difference from what we budgeted and what we paid them, and it's gonna be a difference. I can produce an independent report every month reflecting what the fines were and the reduction to their monthly bill.
I understand that. I would prefer to have it as part of our records, that we see as our finance report, for two reasons. One, if you look back at a year or two later, and you say, how come my number was 300,000 and it jumped to 400,000 or back down, but you have a separate line for just fees or fines, you'd be able to normalize that easily by seeing, hey, and by the way, we may benefit this year for fines to the tune of $15,000, $20,000. Don't count on it next year when we do the budget. So those are, to me, it's a line item. Once it crosses the 5,000 threshold, it's significant, and we should see it. Not have a memo that says it's in there buried. And you can do it accounting-wise, you can do it. I know you can.
Jim, but my records are not buried. Anybody that's coming in is going to see that the first day they walk in, because it sits with my records. I don't
Well, you
think.
missed my point. I want a financial statement that says what's going on, not have sub-schedules or memos that can explain what's going on. Because of historical look-backs, you won't remember those, so you won't find the memos. But two, to show the picture clearly, this is what we would be normally paying, these are the fines. Next year, don't plan on the fines, plan on the fee. Because when we do our assessment per homeowner, and they look at, well, hey, you got $40,000 you guys didn't have to spend. How come you charge me for $40,000 more than you're supposed to? Well, we have an explanation, because there's a separate line called fines. And we can explain it easily by saying, it's not something you can count on. We had to set our rates based on what it would be that we paid. And it's just a separate line item. I don't see why you couldn't do it. That's why.
But Jim, that line item, we can have this conversation. Bill,
Yeah, let's try to get back and keep moving through our meeting.
The answer to my question, I was concerned about the extra usage and where we're seeing an offset. And I knew about the fines.
Right.
I'd like to have, we could always display it, because you're going to get, the other side of the coin is, you're going to have the criticism for why you spend so much money, and you know, that we always get that. And we have an explanation right there on the same page.
Okay. Love you, that's up to you.
It is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Something I want to make sure that the message that we discussed in the meeting can convey to the council regarding what Councilman Yan mentioned, that the funding sources. We know that we're going to do a need analysis, that what projects we need for the next few years, time it out, and also what kind of funding we need, either from grant or special assessment, bond, some kind of debt, that had to be filled in. So we suggest that the town manager also come up with some kind of research results to let the town council know that after we hand it out, you prioritize it. From year 1, we're going to do this, year 2, year 3, all the way to year 10. What we need to do, you prioritize them, what funding is available, then you match them. In some cases, we may have overrun in project, and we have to defer some project in the future. So we need that, rather than to have a CIP based on a few members from the community. I need it, while the rest of them haven't come forward. So I want to make sure that you're doing the job representing at least a majority of the desire of the residents. So by doing the need analysis, by doing the funding analysis, by you prioritizing them, I think we would get a very good idea, like our mayor has said that we have to follow the footprint that the county there. We can plan it, but we cannot fund it. So I hope that message is clear that you can have what the residents do.
Yeah, we have not done and we should do in the future. As we lay out our 5-year plan, we should have funding sources noted on there as to where we think they're coming from. In the past, we really haven't had a concern because we've had a boatload of money sitting there and we've just thrown everything into categories based on the money we had. One of the reasons you have this balance sheet, fund balance sheet every month now, is because we still have a perception of the old days of $3 million in the bank and not being used. And we want to keep reminding ourselves that the $3 million being used, we're being allocating it, and here's where it's going. But it'll be next year that we will have to put down proposed sources of funds for some of the projects that we go 5 years out.
And I think that that's
That would be one of the things we add to the budget process.
because really worried about that being getting out of control. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, I'm sure.
I make a motion, we accept the finance committee for February 2014.
With a motion to accept, second by Ryan. Further discussion by council? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign, passes 4-0. All right, moving to the roadway, equestrian trail, breakaway, Mr. Jack.
Hi, Nina Corning, Chair of the RETAG Committee. First of all, on that question that you had earlier, I think what we were referring to might have been the $200,000 that we had budgeted before as a match. And then, yes, of course, you receive more points when you apply. And you're, depending on how much you match, whether it's 50% or 100% or et cetera. So it has a scale system. It depends how much it weighs and which kind of grant you were applying to. The one that we had dealt with last month, of course, with the DEP. I found out that I was to report on Wednesday evening, and the agenda had already been finished. So if it pleases the council, I will present to you without any written documents and do my best with the ministers of that I have. Is that right? Some of the past presentations had things like F-road completion, park to park. That subject has come up from time to time. It also had the 6th Court going west and then going to the easement of the Jacobs property, and there was the conversation that was supposed to happen with Sonier. I think it's much easier now with Yogi. I don't know where that stands. That subject has come up again. Signage has come up again. There was signage for trailheads, which I think is very smart to wait, until we do anything further in reference to that until we have something more from the bill. The diamond signs, we haven't discussed in detail any further with the horse on it. And then there's the sign of slow for horses at the road entrances. And Mark Putney is working on that. And I think he is concerned that this is not something that can come out of the gas tax money, and he will speak to you in reference to that. Gates for allowing horses and non-motorized passage. We've worked on that and not completed it, but it's been part of the discussion in the past. So the Southern Greenway has been in the discussion in the past, as you know. Maps, horse bridges have come back up again as part of the QED discussions, and you've heard all about that. Fencing, golf carts, a lot of the things that we've discussed have made their way through our liaison, through our town manager, or even Jim Fleischman, as you know, such as the comp plan, transportation elements that we worked on, etc. I'm going to go over just some of the recent minutes. August 28th, we discussed selecting canal project, the need for the trail on the other side of 6th Ward and the easement. We had a motion to go to the IGC and the LGWCD, and we had a little bit of difficulties with this agenda, so he asked me to come to the IGC first, which I did, and then that's when the discussion came about in reference to the bill for the rest of the roads, at which point we said, what about the horses? And that's how the second bill came about. It was decided afterwards that since we had the IGC first and all of this was happening with the bills, that we were going to let the LGWCD be for the moment. We heard suggestions to improve crossing Southern from someone that has horses in Waxahachie Groves but does not actually live here. And we stated that we had previously shown interest in connecting to other municipalities. As you know, we've always looked for intra and interconnections. Also, there was a motion in reference to future size and the amount of speed bumps, that it should be reduced, that it should be considered to reduce the amount and the size of these speed bumps. Keith actually provided a scale drawing for equestrian connection from Erie Canal to Collecting Canal easement. We didn't discuss that any further, but we have it in file, and as time comes to discuss that particular area, we will pick that up. September 25th, we discussed the comprehensive plan, the transportation element of that. As you know, we reviewed it, then we went to the P&Z, and then the council approved it twice. We talked about the MREG, that it was mentioned as we were going through the comprehensive plan that it might need to be updated. As you notice, we took a lot of the MREG language out of the comprehensive plan because it is outdated. And we voted to have presenters from out of town to limit their presentation to 10 minutes. As you saw today, that helps you with some. That was also when we decided that I was going to see the IGC. We had a motion to ask about the $40,000 that are with the water control district, and I think that's continued being in the works and was just discussed again in the IGC. And I don't know all the logistics of passing to the town and the legalities, but that's in the works. October 23rd, we deferred the MREG. That was on our agenda. Town council was to be recommended to consider and implement the placement of controlled crossing with equestrian, pedestrian, bicycle signage at the intersections of Okeechobee Boulevard and Beacon Act, as you do know. It was to be brought up to the, I think we decided to bring it up to the county traffic engineer, Keith, accompanied Mark to the county. And I guess they can give you the update on that. They said it was a positive meeting. They were at least not receiving a no, but Keith was looking for more supporting documents from us and some help to get some supporting information that this is needed from us in the future. We rescheduled Thanksgiving meeting that would have been on the 27th to the 20th. December meetings were all canceled. November 20th, we discussed attacking the MREG. We talked about possibly discussing in January the roads and the trails in February. The January meeting did not take place, and I'll update you in the February meeting later. We also had a member,
okay, if we can just get through the highlights. We've got a long meeting ahead.
Right. Bring up, show an example of a much brighter Slow for Horses sign. On February 26th, we have Solve Agflow came to us with Jim Fleischman, and we discussed their ordeal a little bit. Gave them some recommendations to figure out what it is that they're actually trying to do. They were kind of over there. We had a motion to discontinue discussing the MREG until the council is giving, or the committee is given direction from the council. The roadway canal crossing were discussed and withdrawn by Keith. FDOT State Route 80 was received and noted that we had the equestrian buttons on F and B. And we talked about, again, finishing the F road park-to-park connection, which is the way to get to any of these crossings. Equestrian signs, okay, then it was brought up that the equestrian signs may not be covered by gas tax, and that we need more maps, which I already told you guys. And then, let's see, where's the rest of this?
I would make one suggestion, because it's been a long meeting, and it's gonna be a long meeting, and without being in writing, somebody's gonna come to me later and say, we brought this up to you, and, it's...
I did the best I could at the time I had. And otherwise we'll report it next week. We talked about the FERDAP in fall, brought in information on that, didn't discuss it any further, other than if the bill passes, that then we should look at whatever is up next. We've got an update on the 40,000. On controlled equestrian crossings, maps, road maps, equestrian greenways.
Yeah, please, let's wrap it up.
And, we're basically waiting for the site control. That's all we've done, It's really normal.
All right, moving on to 7, ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, members of the town council, this is back for first reading. This is the livestock waste haulers ordinance. It's not the one that the ULDC that has to go through the process that regulates what the landowner can do on their property. That goes through D&Z. We discussed that before, but this one is ready to move forward. Unfortunately, the one that was in your agenda packet is not the one that was revised pursuant to your direction at the last meeting. That's been provided to you today. I can go through it, but the main point from last meeting was we wanted to more carefully define what a livestock waste self-hauler was, and then to exempt that from the regulations. And so the ordinance now exempts that definition. I'll go through real quick what the changes were, since it was not in your backup, but the main changes, of course, in the title, what we're saying is exempting the waste self-haulers. The incorporated the same definition of bona fide ag that we have in the ULGC, so it's consistent. Same thing with the definition of livestock that was noted last meeting, that we had a more broad definition in the ULGC that's in here. The livestock waste self-hauler was amended pursuant to your direction, which authorizes people to take it from someone else's property, bring it to their own, or to remove it from their own property, take it somewhere else. And the limits of the 10, it has to come in and out only within the town, and it's limited to a vehicle with a capacity of no greater than 10 cubic yards in a specific direction. We did fill in all the dollar amounts of the permits on page 5, 500 for a commercial waste hauler who gets it before they start doing it, 2,000 if they're caught and they don't have a permit. And then the ability to get extra loads, but again, the loads have to originate in, from the town. Anything that's deposited in town has to originate in the town. Finally, again, it's in section 7, authorized times for hauling. Again, that's limited to commercial livestock waste haulers only. And then there's a specific section section 14, which is on page 8, of what was given to you this evening, which is a specific exemption for the waste hauler from this ordinance. Otherwise, it's the same regulations you had before, but it's limited to applying to commercial waste haulers. And this is first reading. We can, if you're ready to move forward, I can take the title. If you want to discuss it, I'm happy to do so.
Let's read the title.
Okay, this is an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Lackawanna, Grosse Florida, relating to commercial hauling of livestock waste within the town, providing for definitions, providing for permit fees, providing for disposal of livestock waste within the town, providing for the permitted hours of commercial hauling of livestock waste within the town, providing for required records. An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Lackawanna, Grosse Florida, relating to commercial hauling of livestock waste within the town, providing for definitions, providing for permits and permit fees, providing for the disposal of livestock waste within the town, providing for permitted hours of commercial hauling of livestock waste within the town, providing for required records and auditing of such records by the town, providing for changes to livestock waste regulations, providing for revocation of permits and enforcement, exempting livestock waste self-haulers as defined herein from this ordinance, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and effective date.
Okay. I'll make a motion, we accept ordinance 2014-03. Second.
So a motion and a second. Joe makes a motion, Brian seconds. Discussion by council. The only thing that I thought we were missing was I thought we were going to allow them to haul waste out of Lackawanna Groves.
It's not prohibits that, it just prohibits if it's deposited in the town.
Excellent, okay, okay. So they can pick it up and haul it out of town.
Right.
All right, we have a motion and a second, no discussion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign, passes 4-0. All right, moving to administrative update.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Three quick things. Number one, the staff is working relative to gas tax map. We'll have that for you at your next meeting for your approval. As of right now, we have verified 3 roads that are coming out of the map for a total of 4,560 feet at a place to 0.86 miles. There are still a few more roads we're checking, so we'll finalize it and bring you the map with the recommended changes on April 15th.
Can you, Mark, send us what you already have?
Yeah, I can do that by email. Sure.
Identified, and do you
Can I
have
find an email?
a potential list that you're also looking at, or is that so broad that it's not really?
No, I'll send it by email with what we have confirmed so far and potential.
And what you may be looking at? Yes, I appreciate that, because I'd rather have looked at it, seen it before we get to a meeting, actually have to vote on it.
Sure, no problem. We have an IGC meeting on the 26th. These meetings are occurring on Wednesday morning, 8:30, to accommodate Mr. Snowball, who has an issue making meetings later during the day. As you know, Councilman Golsonet is sitting in for Councilman Rocket by previous arrangement. We've been over a number of things, caught up on the legislative act. We approved a number of agenda minutes. We talked about the cost estimate that's currently being reviewed and proposed relative to B Road Ocean construction. And one thing that Mike and I wanted to bring to your attention, we did have this discussion as well. The issue of the 40,000 grant that Nita Pointer mentioned earlier was brought up a couple of months ago at a IGC meeting maybe, and we did have that discussion. But actually, Mike and I were not aware of any discussions that have occurred at this level or between us. And the district has moved forward. They actually had their attorneys draft the interlocal agreement after working with Palm Beach County. And the board actually, I think it was 2 months ago, approved it at the Water Control District. We're just letting you know now, because what we're going to be doing is on the 15th, we'll probably be bringing this interlocal back to you. Basically what it does is it transfers the 40,000 that the district received as a grant years back, and have us take that 40,000 and do any equestrian trail improvements that we need to. So that, so wanted to update you on that. Mayor,
Mike,
I'm sorry.
Mark, is there any, and Mike, is there any restriction on using that for matching the grant?
I'd have to take a look at it to see what the restrictions are on that money. I'm not sure. I think it's limited to where it can be used, so if the grant was for that location, maybe it would be up that. But I'd have to check on that.
Thank you.
And then one last quick update, Mayor, you asked about the comments that we made to code enforcement that Phyllis brought up earlier. I want to assure the council, number one, Mr. Shiola is not going out and doing code enforcement on those types of that. You know, his code enforcement is limited to the manure hauling, it's limited to solid waste monitoring. And then, in a pinch, if we're short-handed and he's available, we have him go out to check something if we get a call, very much like the one Ken Johnson was talking about today. Although he didn't go on that one, but that's how we use him. Phyllis did bring a copy of her article to me because it was her position that Mr. Shiola was retaliating against her because of an editorial she wrote. And I read the editorial and looked at it, and looked at the logs, and I can't come to that conclusion because actually what Mr. Shiola did was, during that time frame, he actually made a written code complaint on about 6 different properties. He has done that because he knows the policy is we have to have a written request before we can move on it. So I'm not so sure he was singling her out. That's just my opinion. Obviously, if she wants to continue to pursue that, she can. I just wanted you to be aware of some of the facts because that wasn't presented to you earlier tonight. But he does not go out and routinely do code enforcement. That's done through 2 and 10.
Okay.
And that concludes my report.
All right, any questions for Mark? Ron?
Martin, just with that code enforcement violation, it seems like it's taking a long time. Is she still in violation? Is it, where are we at on that?
My understanding is, I did have a chance to speak to Russ about that, and I had directly talked to her. I know Russ had some medical issues within his family, so he may have been slower getting back to her, but I will check with him and make sure that he talks to her. He did some initial investigation on that, and what I indicated to him was, I want to know more about it, and I also want Russ to meet with Phyllis so they can try to resolve it. If it's an issue, then we need to move forward on it. If it's not an issue, then we need to take it off the list.
Okay. All right, moving to old business. 9, we've already covered 9A.
Yes, sir.
9B, speed humps.
Speed humps. Question by Councilman Walker, one back on.
Yeah, we had left open frequency or distance between. We have decided, we agreed to spec that the engineering group had come back to us, said these are the 2 roads we asked them to spec. And it's one and the same, and so we adopted that spec last night. So now the question was the distance between, or the frequency of speed humps, and in consider in my own mind, we probably need a variable. Things to consider, for example, and maybe a good one to take up would be if we're talking about like a Bryan Road, where people are using the road as a cut through, but it's not next to a canal. It is 7/10 of a mile, so it's longer than a half mile. And I was, the other roads are half miles, but that happens to be the long end of our town. That probably like 4 or 3 speed humps would suffice, based on a little bit of feedback from residents. That would be maybe like an 800-foot spread. If you can in 800 feet, and then you put 3 speed hump, and then you have a blank 800 feet, you've covered the 3,600 foot spread. So that would be like one example of where you use it. If we have heavy usage roads, and maybe by definition we would say that a road that comes in off of Southern, 2, that we would increase the frequency of those speed humps, because the speed humps themselves are more manageable by everybody that lives here. One of my major gripes was that we designed them to stop all speeding and traffic, but we kind of overlook the folks that have to live here. And specifically the nurseries, for example, that have businesses here, that people, I know for a fact, would stop coming off Okeechobee north because they didn't want to go down speed humps anymore. So I think we arrived at something that was provide us some safety features, speed features, but it was much less intrusive than folks put here. So, being that said, I thought that if we have a major road coming in from Southern, which to me is a concern of a lot of traffic, that we might make them 500 feet apart as a practice. some of our speed humps now, I think are 400 to 500 feet apart. I think that maybe what they use. But on a heavy traffic road, so if you come up from up to Okeechobee from Southern, I support it. Maybe we put them like every 500 feet. If you're doing other roads that are less traveled, that it may be more appropriate to do them at 800 feet, or even 1,000, depending on the situation. But that was my thinking, that we probably need a variable, we probably need to relate to what road you're going on, and how that plays to what we decide. But it's not just a flat, measure it out, and that's it, every single road is saying, and so on. So that was my thinking, open up to.
Want to make that motion?
Yeah, all right. We're ready to go home.
Yeah.
No, I understand. No, and if that's, I would make a motion that on the speed hump frequency is variable. And we will use council discretion on what number we would put on each road as it came forward. The example I would use, a suggestion that we would follow, is roads coming off of Southern all the way to Okeechobee, B and F, would use speed humps every 500 feet and no less than 500 feet. No more than 500, no less. Build it into the motion as an example.
And you want to give the 800 for the others?
And for example, of a Bryan Road that goes east-west, that's not along the canal, that we opt with 800. And on our other letter roads, if you go south, we may also use 800, depending on the traffic.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Second by Ryan. Further discussion by Council. Ron?
Just make it quick. I look at it from a firefighter and a police officer aspect now. The bumps we got now are 550 feet apart, and the only thing that would change that is if the driveway hit that spot. I've talked with engineers. They run on anywhere from 1 to 350, 350 to 550, 750 to 1,000. I would prefer, one of the major complaints from the residents was that you got 16 speed bumps on one road. Now, to take care of that problem, I would like to see us go between 750 and 1,000, because they're still going to fly over these speed humps, okay? And the only way we're going to solve the problem, basically the speed humps are just telling people we're trying to be safe and we're trying to keep them out of the canals. I would like to see go between 750 and 1,000, and that could vary based on driveways. I'd like to see the standard be for all blocks. Actually, I think we might run into trouble if we pick one road out. And I believe the residents on that one road that just space every 500 feet, except for places like Compton and Bryan, they love them, they want them. So I personally, as a firefighter, I would prefer, and I talk to the firefighters, and I watch the girls, our speed bumps, I would prefer it to be a standing of 750 to 1,000.
Okay.
And based on where that driveway is going to hit, whether we make it at 750 or, so that's just my
I
opinion.
can amend the motion for my reference at 800 feet to 750 to 1,000, but I still feel that we need to be more speed humps on heavily ingress road from Southern. We just have to select that, understanding that's a traffic issue. People on those roads, I think, would be in support of as much as we could reduce the traffic flow. And it would give us, we have a standard speed hump. We have some criteria that we actually exercise and said, how do you decide which is which? And that would be the only change I make. I can modify 750 to 1,000.
And I agree with Jim, but the one thing I would like is, in other words, if we pick a road we're going to be spending some money on, I would definitely like to at least give the residents on that road an opportunity. In other words, if the majority of the residents said, hey, put it at 1,000 feet, at least I would like to listen to it. But no, I agree with you.
Then it's two separate dimensions.
I kind of agree with what you said before. I think it's important to have a standard, and I agree with you. I think that the two roads are different. And, I'm afraid to get too far apart on the roads because people in 1,000 feet will forget that there was a speed hump and then something will happen and we'll be liable. So even if the residents don't want them, and I sure didn't want them on my road, but at the same time, it does slow down. Keith Harrison.
Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. Gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. The speed tables that you profiled from were from, I believe, Sycamore, and they're more than 500 feet apart. Works very well there. I also appreciate the suggestion of 50 feet from the intersection. It is difficult to make turns for horse trailers, campers, boat trailers, whatnot, and might be considered, if possible, 75 to 100 feet away from it, just to give that opportunity. But the spacing right now, there's 21 bumps between Okeechobee and North Road, and we wanted to satisfy a lot of the residents by increasing the spacing. Thank you.
Okay.
I would think that, for example, I think Keith, we have that 21. It would reduce, we would reduce it substantially. The question is whether we make it, if we made them 800 feet, you take at least a third out, maybe closer to 2/5. If we, the concept, of course, I could see us in our practice and policy say a speed hump no less than and no greater than the end of the street, for example, no closer than 100 feet from the end of the street, but no greater than, some distance from the end of the street, so that you don't, you use the opportunity to, when you turn down a road, you know shortly, in pretty quick time, that you're going to have a speed hump that you will have on this road. You don't have to go down and need to find the first one because of the runway that you create. So, mine is an idea, like put it up there on the wall, see how much sticks, and see what the rest of the council can modify it and work it and see where we come out. We could have one standard. I just thought we'd probably have the need to have, maybe we have the range that allows us to apply the distances differently, depending on some criteria, but we always need some criteria that we will have to use, and not just the whim of the council on that day.
And we can always revisit this. I mean,
Yeah,
nothing is, just because we pass something, that doesn't mean we can't go back and redo it.
Well, one thing of my concern is that we owe response to our, the friends on South B that are putting in B Road. And we need to give them what the spec is on the speed humps. And I know we have the size, but we need to give them, I think it is.
Okay. No, and I agree. Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I firmly believe the resolution the original resolution that Jim Rocket put out is probably the way to go. We need to base the speed humps on usage. We extend, and we must remember that our speed limit is 30 miles an hour. If we start extending the distance between the speed humps, we're encouraging cut-through traffic to speed more. And that's not what we're interested in. Our problems are cut-through traffic coming off of Southern up B Road, up F Road, or wherever it is. And we need to base the distance between the speed humps on usage. Where is the main drive coming from to cut through traffic? I mean, we all have to pay for the expense of keeping up roads. So the slower they go, the better it is. And I think, we just have to maintain slower speeds on these roads and encourage them to go elsewhere to cut through. Thank you.
Nina?
Nina from Ebro, just want to comment, just be careful as you're assessing those roads that, you know, one road doesn't end up receiving a lot more because another road is impossible with speed bumps and the other road is extremely easy with the speed bumps. So yes, look at the usage, but also look at the fact that if C road has a tremendous amount of speed bumps and D road has less speed bumps or less horrible speed bumps, is it that they choose D road over C road? So there may be some adjustment that needs to be done on the other roads that have already been done.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by
Is the motion clear for, can town manager read back the motion to a rep? I don't know if it is.
That's 800, you said it was
Well, what do you have?
800 feet for Ryan, and some of those town roads that are not the main roads, and all those buses, 700.
All roads off of go 500 feet, 800 feet for others, such as Bryan Road. Bryan.
It's 500 and 800.
Is that all right?
You amended it, Councilman, to 750 to 1,000 to accommodate the fire.
Now, I'm looking at Ken, okay, now, we've got an existing of 550, okay, so amended to 550 to 750, at least we've increased it for the people, or we have an option to increase it for the numerous people, the many people that came here and said we had them too close together. For Keith, that says it's abominable to have them 21 on one road, so let's go with what we got. We got 550 people's already complaining about, but if we increase it to 750 max, we keep it in a safe range. We slow people down, and when B Road comes into play, B Road is going to be, I hope I can prove that it is not going to be a cut through because of the speed. And if the people on B Road, because of the college and the situation, want 550 feet apart, just like on C Road, then those people have a right to come here and express their concerns to the council, and we can decide keep them at 550 or raise them to 750. So that would be more realistic, 550, which we already have, or increase them to 750.
Let me ask you, Ron, I thought we had 400 to 500, wasn't fixed 550.
No, the only reason it changes, and John can verify this now, is if a driveway costs to be more, or I think it would, the driveway would cost to be more now, but that was recommended by the engineers, and that's what they went with.
It was basically 500 feet,
500 feet.
but 50 would be an adjustment if you hit a driveway. But I think Jim made a good point that when you turn off of one of the east-west roads, it's a good idea to have that hump come up to let people know while they're still going slow that, hey, maybe it'd be a better idea to stay slow because you may encounter some other humps.
So then I guess I amend the motion, because I'm trying to pick up everybody's good ones.
Yeah.
What else,
All
Ron?
right.
I would just say, let's put a motion to discuss the width when everyone's here. Because I think we all agree that we do have to adjust the width of the distance.
We already voted on that, right?
Yes, and
This is between-
we're just trying to figure out the number.
Okay.
So I think the motion was to adjust the distance, and I think we have consensus where we can go from that.
So wait and hold off until we have.
Well, the firm number, we're not gonna figure it out tonight. I don't think we'll figure it out tonight, so, and it's getting kind of late, so.
The original motion I had was council direction for the number on each road as it moves forward with examples of ranges for these other roads. So, and then they weren't binding, they were, for the B and F, we originally were at 500 feet, and I guess I'm hearing that we between the example, the range would be 550 to 750. And for those that are coming off Southern and Oakland, for the east-west, not along Bryan, you had the suggested or presumed about every 800 feet, same thing for the other right roads. That's originally where we were going with that.
Okay, well, out of respect for Tom not being here, not feeling well, I'd like to then withdraw the motion, we'll postpone the actual agreement on some set of numbers. But if we would be able to include in our minutes that the discussion was, in addition to what you just said, Mike, was that we made mention that at the beginning of roads and at the end of the roads, that we would have an exception and the distance would be shorter in terms of, it wouldn't necessarily be always 500 feet from the end of the road, it might be 200 feet so that you would not go a long distance before you actually experience the speed limit. And then if it's acceptable, if you withdraw a second, if we add a second, then I'll withdraw the motion and just suggest we vote on it next meeting, but we have that information to kick off from and maybe get through it quicker. That's okay by council?
That sounds good with me. Everybody all right with that? All right. So he's withdrawing the motion. All right, moving to the mowing and the ditch bank, did we already cover that?
Well, I'm gonna put that on the next agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Moving to new business, miscellaneous budget issues.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. There are three miscellaneous budget issues, two that you've already approved and one that I'm bringing forward to you tonight that have been requested by the DTAC committee. First, as a general matter, though, I would say that the staff warning to you is that we have a very tight budget and there's not a lot of room. So I want to make that clear because we're going to have to be very careful as we move through the rest of the year. You may remember that back in, I guess it was November, you agreed to allocate $5,000 as the town's part in the funding of a lobbyist pursuant to regarding the Western Communities Council. However, that was not a budgeted item, so we have to find a place where we're going to, and we have a recommendation for you tonight. We just received the invoice for that, by the way, so this is kind of timely. The second item was the actual culvert as it relates to Compton Road. That is not in our CIP, it was never an item. So we do need the budget for that. And right now, not all the costs are completed, but we're very close. I think I'm still waiting on one from Steve Yowie relative to finishing up the culvert. But right now, based upon the costs assigned to the engineering, to the inspection, to the actual work done by the district, right now we're looking, it's at $7,320. So there are those two. The third item, one you haven't approved yet, but the request is the RETAC committee would like you to put up the signs that you have as an attachment to the report and the agenda, which talks about equestrian area, slow for horses, that yellow sign that they apparently used in Indian Trail. There it is up on the board. Basically, staff went ahead, did some research, and found that we can, the vendor that we use for our signs, we can get each sign at $144. The committee tells me they would like 17 signs, so that would be a total cost of $2,448, which is not budgeted, and which you would have to authorize tonight if you want to go forward with that.
And that's not installed.
That's not installing them. Yes, we would have to install them as well. You're right, there's additional cost. That would generally be our public works vendor. Okay. So what we're recommending as far as these three budget items, first of all, we're recommending that the fund of the $5,000 contribution of the lobbyists out of line item, I'm not going to read all the numbers, it's basically special events contributions in the executive area, the cost center. Since there was little town election expense this year, we recommend that the culvert project be covered by these funds, and we would go ahead and do the budget amendment and move those funds into the CIP and put it in the projects that's covering the roads, the $100,000 for engineering and road work, Marcel and Bryant roads.
All right, hold on, Mark, go real quick for you. Move the specific item into the CIP.
Move those funds via budget amendment into the
So
CIP.
the budget is already there. We just identify part of the 100,000 as this.
Right, the culvert was never budgeted, just
No,
the
but we
three
have
roads.
funds in there for $100,000 for various town roads.
Right.
Are we just going to pull a piece of that aside and say this is the culvert?
No, we're gonna take it from election expense. We had very little election expense this year, one of the few line items I can take the money and move.
All right, now you've lost me, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let's start with
Right.
5,000. 5,000 you're just gonna put where?
5,000 is gonna come out of the contribution of lobbies is gonna come out of the line item regarding special events contributions.
And it's already budgeted? Or we're gonna put budget in there?
Taking it from that line item, it's not, that's budget, yes.
Okay, so we're creating taking a piece of that budget and sticking it into a new line item.
We're taking that project that you approved, and we're taking the money from that line item.
But you're
We will-
creating a new line
We'll have
item?
to yes, we'll have to create a new line item and identify it via budget amendment.
Or you're just gonna include it in that line item we already have, and that's what we will charge? Rolla?
I suppose we could take it from that line item,
Which one are you talking
the
about?
$5,000
The
contribution.
$5,000 is a contribution to the Western Communities Council. It's coming out of line item 511, the special events contributions line item. We're not adding money to it, we're using the $5,300 that's budgeted.
All right,
in that line item.
we're not making a budget change then for that.
No, we are charging it
That's
to that
fine.
account.
That's fine.
The budget change would be for the second one that I talked about.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm doing, one at a time.
Okay.
Lost one.
Okay,
The second item that we have, the culvert, that you had 7,000 or something
Right.
identified.
right.
I thought if we had capital, unidentified specific road improvements in our capital budget, that we go into that capital budget and slice the piece out and now label it a culvert. Is that not something we can use as a gas tax
That's
money?
something we could also do.
Jim, what we had for the town OGIN project under the CIP, which is $100,000, that was for the cost of the design, inspections, engineering, plus the resurfacing of the 3 roads.
Okay,
The
all right,
culvert
then you
was-
can't use that. Okay.
No, that money is identified for those projects. What we would like to do is, we would like to take money out of the general fund and specifically out of the line item for elections, since we didn't have an election this year and we budgeted $8,000, do a budget amendment for transferring money from the general fund to the capital improvement into that line item, which was Town Road OGIN, because the culvert that's going under the Compton Road into the F Road Canal is part of that whole project. And we could pay for it with those funds.
Wait a minute.
Or
Okay.
you could take it from
Pay
another
for it
project in the
with-
CIP.
With which funds?
The $7,300 of the election
All right,
funds.
now why do we do that? We have money in gas tax funds that we can go pull.
Jim, all the money in the transportation fund is identified. We have contracts for the water control district for the maintenance of district roads, for the maintenance of town roads.
As I recall, Pearl, to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but we had a balance in the transportation fund that was not identified and pushed into CIP. There was a balance,
$26,000.
26, take it down 7.
So you want to take it from fund balance?
I want to take it from fund balance, but I want to keep it out of, I want to use the gas tax money.
Okay.
We can take general funds any day to bail out what we're short, but let's get the gas tax money if we can use it, and use it that way. Okay?
All right.
What was the third item?
Now, the third one is you haven't approved this yet. This is the one I was talking about from the REPTAG committee. This is the 17 equestrian signs. That comes to $2,448, not counting the expense to erect the signs.
Now, that money can or cannot be gas tax money.
That, Pearl has done the research on that. That cannot be, they're not eligible as a gas tax.
It cannot.
That's correct.
Okay,
So,
that's the first question, so we know we can't go after that. We don't have a lot left anyway, but we can't go after it.
Well, you could use the
you
election
can
fund.
use the election.
I understand, but you know my reasoning, I think council here, we use that gas tax money if we can, when we can. And lastly, we use our general fund, which can be used for anything we want to spend it on.
Well, there's 2 questions here. First of all, remember, you haven't approved this one. So I think you'd have to approve it, then we'll figure out where we're going to do the money. But if you're so inclined, and you want to approve it, then we'll.
And Mr. Rocket, we're going out to bid on a drainage matter that's not budgeted either. You need to take that into consideration with your fund balance and in the transportation fund, because you're going to have to tap into the $26,000 you have left to cover that too.
when we get to that point,
Okay.
and we run out of money in gas tax, then we'll start tapping if we can. If it allows, when gas tax money used only where it's supposed to be used, then we'll run out of that, we'll start with the general fund. So I would make a motion that we put, now, first of all, the signs are different than what we have now when it comes to equestrian.
Correct, the previous sign was a smaller brown, like a brown sign, I think we have like one left.
We're not changing those, or we are all basically being.
No, this is gonna be the new sign that the retail committee agreed with.
Is this sign glow in the dark? I mean, when you hit it with headlights, is it that kind of material?
I don't know.
I just question,
I don't know.
Safety sign, so that it glow,
So we need to have horses that have magnification on them, so they light up.
we're gonna have the horses.
Okay, Ron?
So I would approve that, any motion to approve that.
Let me make a comment on the equestrian signs. First of all, I would like to discuss this and not tonight, okay? I've got a problem. First, you've got two posts. Our signs in Wasatch Groves, they have one post, okay? And I don't like the idea, I look for our previous equestrian signs where it says equestrians have the right of way, and they're gone. Now, I'm not interested in tonight why they're gone, but I'd like to discuss that at the next meeting. Okay, but, well, there was one on A Road today, but tonight it was gone. But what I'm getting at is before we agree to pay $2,000 and something and labor not included, I don't have a problem with the sign, it's pretty, but I have problems with two posts instead of one, so this needs to be discussed.
I was gonna say, that, yeah, based on those comments, Vice Mayor, maybe the proper thing would be to not take action on this tonight. Let me take it back to the RETAG committee, we could talk about it a little further and decide.
The consensus would be that the council will agree to the signs, is that, can we ask for consensus?
No, I think we need to look at all the way around. I mean, I know we need signs. At the same time, we are getting bigger and more signs on every one of our roads. I was looking at our golf cart sign today, and all of a sudden, we've got to put a sign up for everything we allow. We will no longer be able to see anything other than the sign. And think of the old song from the 60s. So, I think we just need to deal with this another time.
All right, I'll take it to the RETAG committee this end of this month, and then we'll be coming back to you in May, and we'll bring it back to
Okay.
the meeting.
Sounds good.
All right.
We'll get on the motion that wasn't seconded.
Okay.
So we just need a motion on the first two items.
All right.
And this will come back as a budget amendment.
Okay. Jim, you're going to make a motion?
That we, I'm sorry, make a motion that we approve the first two items as we discussed their budget coverage and how you report.
So as discussed by Councilman Rocket,
Councilman Rocket, and
as opposed to what's in the agenda packet.
correct.
And Ryan makes a second. Further discussion. Ron?
Just one comment. Next council meeting, I will be discussing the price on the culvert.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Wait, I got one. Ben Johnson?
I'll wait, just say, but no next.
We'll do public comment. Okay. All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Moving to 10B. This is Jim's.
Oh, yeah, this is, we are approaching time when we need to, I believe, issue RFP, so we have plenty of opportunity to run it by the Finance Committee and also add or change what we've done in the past. One of the things that, I have to apologize to you, Mr. Mayor, that I did not agree with you when you were, for good reason, adamant about not including the responsibility to do the hurricane management as part of the job of our town manager, and we can hire out for that, and that's a better way to do it. But I was young and inexperienced at the time. So that would, I would think, be one change I would suggest we take out of the RFP. There is one area in the RFP that we've keep talking about, that we're really not, I'd like to add emphasis to the communication piece of the RFP somehow, where it becomes a primary item, that we make sure that it's spelled out and it's appropriately staffed if it needs to be, and that is the communication which covers newsletter, website, that is part of the current contract we have, part of the RFP. It's in both places, and I don't know how to make that a more pronounced responsibility, but I would like to somehow figure that out. Other than that, the only other thing that I don't think in an RFP we're going to put in there more things than what we have already as far as these are criteria, these are responsibilities, but at some point when we do a contract, we need to put in criteria for evaluation. We have in there that we have evaluations done, but we really don't have the criteria developed well. I mean, we got a long list of things that are supposed to be done, and we had a little grid that Mark put together for us, which basically reiterated all the various line items, and you can go through and grade them, but we never did that. And I'd like to be able to send this back to the Finance Committee to have their take on it at their next meeting, to put their input into the RFP for town management before we give it to the attorney to draft.
All right, quick question. Right now, what do we have, a 5-year contract with them?
We have a 3-year contract, and then we have a 3-year contract that automatically goes, every year renews.
No, it doesn't automatically.
Well,
you have 2 one-year options upon the agreement of the parties. So you have your initial was 3 years, which goes until September 30th. You can renew it with the management company if there is an agreement of the parties to do so for 2 additional one-year terms. If you choose not to pursue that renewal, then you would go through an RFP process or selection process. I would dictate that, but in the past you used RFP.
Well, one of the other things I'm sorry, Dylan, I guess you're ready to speak on it, is that I think we need to consider as a council whether we come away from a management company and we actually go with employees. It's something that we, I think in the past have shied away from for a number of reasons. I think one of them, a big reason, was we probably felt cost would be less if we went with a management company. The other thing that bothers me, and you're aware of it, I think, all on the council, is that we have a contract for certain service that is not being entirely done, but we're paying for additional services that have come up that we have written and agreed to pay for. It needs to be, we need to have a contract that's fixed for a period of time that says this is what the services are that you're provided, and they're all provided. And if you don't have time to do the things that we say are in there to do, then the council needs to direct what can be put off and what not. We have, seemingly, we have no say. We sign a contract, and for 3 years we do whatever the management company decides that it wants to do. For good reason, I'm sure.
The only thing I was going to say is I would really love to talk about this with full council.
Oh, I do. I've raised the issue because I'd like to see the Finance Committee see it this next meeting. And add their 2 cents to it. But I would not, without Tom here, it's not a complete subject, but discuss it, bring it up, start the conversation, and have us think about it.
Rob?
Mike, question for you. Our next meeting, and Mark, that committee, will they meet before our next meeting?
No, they'll be meeting after their meeting is 28th this month.
28th, and we meet on the
15th. Yeah.
Okay. This is a serious situation, and I had a lot of questions and stuff, so I definitely, as far as our time schedule, in other words, if we discuss this next meeting on our agenda, we still got plenty of time to do what needs to be done. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to, I don't recall the time frame, but, you know, assuming you work backwards from September 30th, if you were going to go through the process, you would want to have it completed, I would think, at least 60 days before, so that you can have some time to have a contract put in place and some transition. But again, I think the first decision that council has to make is, are you going to go forward with the process, or are you going to look to try to renew it, because that's your contract right now. You don't have to make that decision with any finality, but I think that's what the basic first question you must ask is, got a contract in place, is it something that management company is interested in renewing, and the town council is interested in renewing, or you want to go through a process simultaneously or in lieu of that? That's the first question. As a council, you've got to make a decision on.
Okay.
And then again, going through the RFP, decide if you do that process, the process you used last year, last time I recall, was, I believe you may have workshopped it, may have sent it to the FAAC. I think you did do that, and they came back and you all went through it, approved it line by line before it went out. And that's going to take some time, and it takes some special meetings to get that through the process and decide to go that route. But you do have time if you start giving us the direction how you want to proceed next meeting.
Hey, Rob?
And the only other thing is Jim mentioned our own employees. Now, we need to know whether that's possible. In other words, if we discuss this at the next meeting, I don't know if I have consensus of the council, but I would like to know what it would take and if that was possible according to our charter and all that.
We have to change the charter.
Well, I don't know if the charter prohibits employees. I'll double check that, but I don't think it prohibits it. But you know, we'll go back. I'll go back and look. I didn't see the town management section, but maybe there's another catch-all somewhere else that I didn't spend a tremendous amount of time doing this, so I got direction from you all. But the local, so I'll confirm that. That's something that's of interest to the council.
All right.
I couldn't find anything on it, but Mike's got to answer that question.
Right.
I ran it by real quick, and he didn't have anything top of his head, said no or yes, so he's going to look at it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Can I address it from an objective point of view when you did it the last time? I think you need a little bit more time if you're going to do it. Because the last time you did it, you approved a contract a week before the beginning of the fiscal year. Just from a perspective of a company coming in, I'm just going to give you an idea. When we got here, we walked in and we spent 3 days before the day we signed the contract. We spent the last 3 days with the management company. There was no checks, there was no credit cards. Your system is in place, but you have to have an invoice, but the town didn't even have its own check supply. So for the first month, we carried your company, your city, until we got checks in, and then it took 4 months to get credit cards. You need to give the new company coming in a little bit more time, and you probably need a little bit of an overlap, not too much, but you can't come in the last meeting in September to approve a contract with a company that's going to walk in and you're supposed to start running. I'm just giving you some input that might help you. And as I've told you in the past, I've got a running list of things that y'all have in your RFP that shouldn't be in your RFP because it really wastes your time. You want you to put in this many hours, but you've got a list of mandatory meetings that you have to attend that takes away from the time you could spend in the hour. Some of those meetings aren't necessary for staff to be at, but you've got a list that goes on forever. And Waxahachie actually doesn't attend very many meetings, but you've got a list of things that you would never consider going to, but those are requirements, they're not optional. And as far as the newsletter is concerned, we did do a newsletter, but the last time the council asked, we put out a postcard to ask all the citizens, what would they want to see? Out of the 3,100 postcards we sent out, we received 26 responses, and most of them were from the people right here. And let me tell you, there was no consensus. Everybody was different. I couldn't even get 5 people to agree on once a year, or whether the web or is in these RFPs that we did not perform? That would be something useful. But I do think that if you're going to make a change, and that is your prerogative, that you think you need to give yourself a little bit more time. This is a very important contract. It's not like your other contracts, and you live with those people for a while, and you just can't it shows up 1 minute after you approved it. You do have to give it some time.
Right.
Pearl, I agree with you 100%. And Pearl, I got one question for you. 45 to 60 days, is that even enough time? And I agree with you if we need an overlap, but 45 to 60 days, is that reasonable?
I didn't think it was reasonable when you put it out to bid. And remember, the bid opening was in September or the end of August the last time for a company that was going to walk in on October the 1st.
No, that was definitely, that's why I'm asking 45 to 60 days. In other words, help me out with the recommendation.
Look, when we're doing the software program, we're trying to turn it around fine. But if you're going to put a software in place, the software needs to be here on September 30th, so your new company is the one that needs to be trained, and the implementation has to be with them. I've talked to the council, some of you, maybe not all of you, but I've always talked about a 4-month window is what you need. You need to let us know in that 4-month window, and you need to start the process. Because you go through the different committees to look at your proposal, it comes back to you, let's take this out, let's put this in, and before you know it, it's been 6 weeks.
I'm just trying to get this decision delayed until we have a full council.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
But those questions.
I'm not. He was asking me a question. I'm telling you, I think you don't need to
The
wait.
question was started that if you had time, if you put it to the next meeting, and yes, you do.
Okay.
And by the way, just for the on record, I also agree with Pearl with what she said. And the intent is to raise it down. You're gonna move forward, you have time to do those things, and I would welcome input from Perla that says these are a couple of things from her perspective that, like all your comments, I'd like to see them as other piece of information to help us look at what we do going forward. But it was really a courtesy to you all in large part as anything else. So if there's no change made, there's no change made. But if there is one, you have the opportunity to see it coming.
Oh, well, I would
You know what I'm
like,
saying?
I would like it to
So
be-
it would like, if we know 2 months out, and that means the end of July, the end of July, and that's close. So we really need to start the process of Robinson. That's why I brought it up this time.
Okay.
Next meeting, kick it around, don't find
We got a lot of the next meeting.
Yeah, I know, it's growing. And my biggest concern, I know we got a lot of balls in the air right now. I don't like changing, didn't vote for a change last time. So, at the same time, I don't want to put fear in the staff saying, we're not going to be here next year. So, I mean, that's one of my concerns. But anyway, let's put this off until the next meeting, until we have everybody here. Yeah, the next meeting is getting bigger and bigger. All right, where are we at? We have public comments. I've got Keith Harris.
Mr. Mayor, you didn't remember that I'm not in. Come on up here.
I want to talk one
Kidding,
on this
I'm
subject.
kidding.
I want to talk one on this subject.
I appreciate everything you have said tonight, and I'm sure we'll appreciate the next one.
Keith Harris, 25 ABC Road. Earlier tonight in the administrative update, the town manager mentioned the gas tax map coming out for review in the future. In the roadway equestrian trail greenway advisory committee report, Chairperson Corning mentioned a roadway canal crossing report that I submitted to them and withdrew during that meeting. I'd like to comment on that. January 6th of this year, I submitted to town management a report on roadway canal crossings, their repair and their replacement, their costs, who would pay for it, and how they relate to gas tax map. I have sent to each of the town councilmen and the mayor a copy of that report. And I would like the opportunity at a future date to put that on the agenda for discussion with the town council. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. All right, moving to attorney. Come on, stay it.
Go Gators.
I think we're all rooting for, I know we're all rooting for them. Okay, council members, Jim?
Thank you all that left. They won't hear that, but maybe they'll read the minutes. Thank you all for coming. Thanks, Perla, for showing up tonight and adding another degree of information to our conversation. I have one item that I wanted to raise, and I asked the question, why is the council being paid before the month of our service? And I just asked that we move that payment into the month we actually are serving. We do it, I guess, for convenience, but I don't see the need to do that. You get paid for the month, you get paid first of the month, middle of the month. I mean, I've been paid at the end of the month when I finished a service for a particular month period. I think paying before the month begins, we need to change that. And I don't know if you're even aware that that's going on as a council. It's simple if you don't do it that way, but it's a very minor fix at the end of the year to make an accrual and defer the costs into next year because we prepaid. So I'm under the impression more council members than not want to be paid that way, and I just think it's the wrong thing to be doing. If we're paid, we should be paid for the month we actually earn the services, either the beginning and the not before.
Okay. Yeah, Ron?
Go Gators, but just to comment on that, hey, I like the money coming in like it is. Hey, trust me when I tell you, I put enough hours in every month that I could justify getting paid. But no, hey, I'm flexible either way, but I like it like it is, and I don't like changes when it comes to my money.
Right.
Thanks for staying, everyone is still here, and it looks like we're going to eat minutes, so we're not going to be here for over a day, and go Gators.
Okay, thank you to the water control staff for sticking around. You might as well just sleep here. Thank you all for coming. Motion adjourned.
Mark, can you use these?
I'll take them back. No, if I can hear you clean one day, I will promise you don't want those. No. Thank you.
Yes, I did. Oh, 5 o'clock is early. Good, good. 5 o'clock comes early. Hey.
You are kidding, I got beat until 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, I want to be realistic, I was supposed to
Everyone's safe. Yeah, I don't get anything. I got talk radio. All the Gator Gators on the college sports station on Sirius.
Why did you say go Gators? You didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. He takes it back.
Hey, if anybody needs to go, the Gators need to go. Now, some of those are doing fun. Did John leave the elevator?
Ken had Elisa's keys in his pocket.
Oh, I gotta meet Ron, oh, there he
I'll
is.
make a mention of it at the last meeting. Okay? I didn't bring